Hey everybody, this is Jose Blasco. We are about to get started. This is a sound check. Please, can you please go ahead and send a quick message on the chat box to confirm that you hear my voice? That means sound is good and we are ready to get started. I believe all is good, but again, I do appreciate very much this quick confirmation so I know all is properly set. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn on the video stream as well so I can put myself, as always, in the bottom right corner of the screen. How are you, everybody? Mark, good to see you, my friend. Very nice to hear that all is good. How are you, Chuck? I see you are connected with us using the YouTube channel. Remember, Chuck, that you can also connect utilizing the live page in our website, which is the private room instead of the public stream. Yes, very good. Wonderful. Perfect. Okay, everybody. So let's begin with the session. Let me turn on the disclaimer on the upper left side of the screen. Please read it carefully. This is important information. As always, I'm counting on you to read it completely, even though today the market is closed. It's still relevant information, so please read it carefully. Ahmed, how are you? Good to see you. Very nice. And again, the plan for today, today is a top session, isn't it? So we're going to be looking at the platform. Sometimes when we look at how to use the platform, we need to add a little bit of lecture time because you cannot separate trading options with using the platform. It goes hand in hand. And for sure, I welcome your questions and answers. Any question you may have, feel free to type it on the chat box, and I will be more than happy to take a look at it. Chuck, I see you are connected in the private room now. Wonderful. Thanks a lot. Yes, cool. Wonderful. Okay, everybody. So let's begin. As we start, I wanted to give you a reminder as well to please utilize the link tradewithufos.com / the name of your instructor, in this case, Jose. Could be /Becky, /Boyan, /Pedro, /Reynaldo, etc. And using that link, you come to the help page where you have this section here where you can post questions that you may have, detail your question, insert pictures of the charts, pictures of the platform, whatever is it that you want to ask about. And then here in the bottom part, you have already questions that were posted before with answers. And basically, we are building a database that will help you and the whole community to find answers more quickly. So please go ahead. If you have questions, use the help page, as this could be very, very good for the community apart from yourself. Of course, if your question is more, let's say, private, maybe there is something that you don't plan or don't feel comfortable by basically publishing on the site, you can certainly email us, and for sure more than happy to assist you. Cool. Okay, so here is stop. Okay, and what we did in the last session is that we started learning a more efficient and more advanced use of the charts. Okay, and today we're going to continue. In the prior session we talked about floating the windows, changing the time frames, unique time frame, changing the symbols, different symbols. So we talked about all those things, and we basically concluded the session talking about the drawing tools such as the trend line, such as the ray, such as the horizontal line that goes from left to right, the extended line, that's how it's technically called. Okay, so that's the last thing that we covered in the prior sessions, in the prior session that we had, and I would like to continue from there, continue working on the charts. And since we were dealing with graphic drawing tools, so let's continue with that before we get into other matters which are critical on the charts, because in the end the charts, even if you're an options trader, in the end, understanding the technicals, understanding the charts is going to be key for you to put the options trade and that have a greater probability of working well for you. So anyway, so the next tool we're going to talk about is the rectangle. You can click on the rectangle tool right there if you have the toolbar enabled. If you don't have it enabled, of course, you also have the rectangle all the way there on the left. So the moment you click on the tool, you can then go ahead and move anywhere on the chart, and you just click, you drag, and you click again, and magic, you have a rectangle. Okay. Then, of course, you can click on the rectangle, click and hold, and then you can move it around like any other graphic element. You can also right-click on the rectangle, get to line study properties, okay, a little bit of a shortcut is to double click. If you double click, it gets you there immediately instead of right click and let me do it again. So right click, line study properties, okay? But now notice that if I right click, if I double click in the middle, nothing happens. I need to double click exactly where the edge is. And the moment I double click on the edge, that's when I get the properties, okay? How are you, Fernando? Good to see you. Does stop support hotkey? There is a collection of hotkeys which are already predefined. We cannot record or save new hotkeys, if that's your question, Chuck, at the moment. But it is a feature that we plan to launch sometime in the future, even though I don't have a date at this moment in time, okay? But there are a few hotkeys that are already part of the platform. From time to time, I give you tips on that. For example, going from one chart to the next one when you look at the tab chart. So you would do that with control page up, right? Or control page down. So there are a few hotkeys, okay? Actually, there are a bunch. But again, you cannot save your own, okay? So I believe this is probably the nature of your question. Clive, how are you? Good to see you, Clive. Wonderful. Okay, so yeah, we were talking about the rectangles. Again, you can right click and go to the line study properties. In this case, it's a rectangle, or you can just remove it, or you can copy, and now you have another one that you can place somewhere else. All of this is quite handy. Again, if I double click to get to the properties, so basically you can change the color of the rectangle itself and the thickness. So if I was to make it thick, like number 5, and I was to make it red color, right? So now you would be able to see how the frame of the rectangle is red, and then you may have also noticed that there was an option for shading, where if I uncheck it, there is no shading. So it's a transparent rectangle. You could think of it like that, or you could then activate the shading and just pick whatever color you want, for example, blue, and now you're gonna have a blue color within the red rectangle, okay? So then to delete, you can just click on the rectangle and hit delete on your keyboard, or you can just right click on the rectangle and select remove. In both cases, you would be getting rid of that graphical element, which is exactly the same as we saw with the lines. It's the same type of functionality, and talking about the same as the lines, when you want to set defaults for your rectangles, if instead of drawing your rectangle and then change the properties by going to line study properties like I've done, you were to right click on the rectangle button, okay, so right on the button, either on the toolbar or all the way here on the main toolbar on the left, the moment you right click, it's gonna bring in the properties, and if you change it there, what this is actually doing is that you're actually making those properties to be default. So if I was to make this blue, right, and then I draw a rectangle, then all my rectangles starting from now would be blue color because I changed the default by right clicking on the button instead of right clicking on the rectangle that I already drawn on the chart, okay? So keep that in mind. That was the same with the lines, okay? Joe, I don't recall talking about the lines, but no matter, easy enough. What I would like to know is how to reset a price point on a data line. Okay, so yes, so we did talk about the lines on the last session. I'm very, very positive, probably all the way at the end. So if you look at the prior recording, you will see that. And when you draw a line, I believe that your request is that you want to somehow, instead of, let's say you want the line to be at 450, so instead of dragging the line to be 450 with a mouse, and sometimes you cannot be exactly that precise, and now that line was 450.02. So what you're asking, I believe, Joe, is that you would like a way where maybe I could double click and type 450 and the line is located exactly at 450. And if that's your request, which I believe it is, the answer to such request is this is coming in the future, but that functionality is not available yet. Just like having like a price tag that shows the price of the line to be at 450, for example. So that, that option is not available as we speak, but it will be in the future. Okay, again, when we launch the platform, since many of the things are automatically plotted by the platform, such as Elliott waves, the UFOs, all those things. So in order to reduce the amount of time to launch the platform, we gave less priority to those functionalities, even though, of course, I think they are handy. and we will keep improving on those drawing tools, okay, for sure. The ellipse, okay, is the next drawing tool that I'm going to discuss, and it's copy paste, okay. So you just click and drag, okay, and now you can draw your circles. Now again, talking about hotkeys and little tricks, if you hold the control key, okay, if you hold the control key, it will allow you to, sorry, in this case it's not the control key, it's the shift key. The control key, sorry for that, was for the lines, to make the lines horizontal or vertical. In this case, if you hold the shift key on your keyboard, it will allow you to create circles which are exactly round. Okay, so if this is what you want to do. And then same story, if you double click on the edge, okay, you get into the properties, or if you right click, sorry, let me do that again, right click and select the properties, or remove or copy, again, same story. Now you can change the thickness, the colors, is exactly the same process. So I guess I don't need to repeat it. One last time, talking about the ellipse, same story. If you right click on the button itself, now you are setting defaults. So if I right click on the button, I make it red, then all my ellipses in the future will be red unless I change the defaults again in the future. So same story for the lines, for the rectangles, for the ellipses, okay? All of these are drawing objects where you try to highlight things manually. The other one, which is a manual thing, is the ABC, which is for text, where if I click on the text window and I bring my cursor to wherever I want the text to be, and then I type, here is my text, for example, right? And then you click OK. Now you can, before the text is placed on the chart, it gives you a second chance to move it around, because the moment you click on the chart, you kind of get an approximate location where you want the text to be. But then the reality is that when you type it, that's when you really see how long or short it is, and it may not fit where you thought it would. So then it gives you a second chance to move it. And when you click on the second time, that's where the text will stay. Of course, you can always go back, click, and move it again. Not an issue. So you click and hold and drag and release, right? Or you can also right click on the text to go to the study properties, remove or copy, okay? Same as before. Or you can double click on it, same process, to get into the chart properties. Now, sorry, not the chart properties, the text properties. Now, the text properties, in the case of the text, as you can see, has many more options available, such as the font, is it bold, what is the size of the font, are you showing the text as a push pin? Let me show you what that does. Okay, so you basically show there is something, okay, but you don't show the text. So this is to save space, or maybe it's some notes that you make to yourself as a trader that you don't want other people to read, but you want them to be on the chart, so you don't have to have like a, the notes in a separate spreadsheet or a separate piece of paper. So you may have the pin there. No one can read what's in there, but it's there. So then, if you double click, then you can see what it is. Okay, so that way you can always go back, double click or go to the line properties, and you can see what the text was. Okay, yeah. So that's a little feature as well that to some of you may be convenient. Okay, so again, now notice how the defaults in the case of the text is here. Okay, in other words, let me not save as a default. Let me click OK. Notice what happens when I go to, for example, the rectangle, and I right click. So it gives me the properties. Okay, but when I go to, we just talked about that, right? But when I go to the ABC, which is the text, if I right click, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And why is that? Well, it's because it's more the text is more complex, because you cannot set the defaults from right clicking the button, because that means that the text would actually the default. So every time you place text, it would be the text is already there for you. So then the way we had to fix that issue is use that tool. So when you click on the chart, it now gives you an opportunity to save the default, where the defaults that are being saved is the right side of the screen only. The text would not be saved as a default. So you can save your font size, for example, is it bold or not, the font type, the color, all of this is saved. And when you click OK, if you click Save as Default, so now this will be remembered for any other text that you add in the future. Okay, So so that's where you find it. Okay, so again, intuition may have you come here and right click on the ABC and you're like, oh, nothing's happening, something's wrong here. Well, it's not wrong. It's because if we were to allow the functionality to be on the bottom, then the text itself would also become a default. Okay, so we had to do it differently in this case, and therefore that's why you will find a save as default button on the text tool, where if you do a rectangle, okay, and I go for the properties, you will not have a save as default button inside the rectangle. Save as default would be on the button itself on the left when you right click on it, as I demonstrated before. By the way, talking about the drawings, there is a very nice function when you right click on the chart, which is to remove the lines. Okay, and the lines means drawings. Okay, and text is drawing, is whatever you have that has been manually input on the chart. The platform calls it lines, and therefore you could go ahead and remove it, and you can remove it for all symbols. So no matter the symbol in that chart window, everything would be gone. Or if you want to keep it for all other symbols, but you only want to remove it for SPY, which is the current symbol, so you would now select for current symbol, and notice how everything went away, including the text, even though the option is remove lines. Okay, so all those things are based on the nomenclature within the platform is called lines. It's called the line toolbar, and therefore everything in there is lines. Okay, it's seen as lines by the platform. Cool, very nice. So now, if I zoom in here, okay, so all of those are the drawing tools that we covered, okay, and the ABC. So now the difference between those tools and the other tools, okay, is that these tools, as well as that tool, have to do with some technical analysis, automated measurements, and drawings that have to do with the analysis, where everything else, okay, may be used for an analysis. So maybe you are a support and resistance trader and you are drawing support and resistance. Maybe you trade price zones and you're using rectangles to draw price zones. You name it. So you may be using the drawing tools to do technical analysis, but you may also be using those tools, in a creative fashion, where maybe you draw yourself, something there, or you write yourself some inspirational quote on the chart to remind you on how to manage your own trading psychology. I don't know. I'm just making up a possibility, which could make a lot of sense actually. But in any case, the point I'm making here is that all those tools that we covered could be for technical purpose, and then it's manual analysis done by you, the trader, or artistic, if you wish, where the remaining set of tools that we're going to cover, which are those tools here and that one below, those are not tools that could be used for artistic purposes, if that's a valid term in trading. Those are actually tools designed where some data processing is happening while you are drawing the tool. For example, a Fibonacci retracement tool, it's calculating Fibonacci ratios at the same time at which you are drawing your fibs. So in other words, it's a mix between technical analysis, which is embedded with drawing and plotting. Okay, so let's begin with the one on the top, which is the linear regression line. Let me take a look at the question here from Chuck. That is a great feature. TradeStation does not tell you that everything gets deleted on all charts as a default. Thanks for that, Chuck. Yes, I mean, I think there are some features that are pretty cool. Of course, we also have room for improvement, like always, and this will always be, even if the platform has been out there for 20 years, there is always things that we can do better. But indeed, I appreciate your comment, Chuck. And everybody in general, if you're watching this video now live or recorded, doesn't matter when, or if you watch it 2 years later on the YouTube channel, any suggestion for features and so on, just make sure you email us, guys, because we'll put that in the list, okay, for sure. So anyway, linear regression. So I'm just gonna draw a linear regression randomly from here to here, and notice how some band has been plotted. Okay, so first thing, for the ones of you that are not using linear regressions in your trading, so I would like to talk a little bit about what that is. Okay, and basically A linear regression is a statistical calculation where you're basically calculating the linear regression line, okay, which is that line which is the closest to equal distance to every price point possible on the chart, starting on that initial time, which is where you clicked when you started drawing, and ending on that later time when I clicked the second time. So let me do it again so you will see how I draw it. So I'm just gonna remove the lines and draw again the regression line. So click on the regression line. Let's say I'm going to start from this candle. So I click on this candle. It doesn't matter where, just where the candle is. Even if I click on the white space, it doesn't matter where the candle is. And then from there, just go to the last candle, and wherever the candle is, it doesn't matter where. Even if I click down here, as long as I am vertically speaking where that last candle is. So now I'm calculating a regression line from that candle on 14th of October all the way to that candle, which is 29th of October, right? And that line in the middle, again, is the regression line, which is, again, I often kind of oversimplify, everything that has to do with the theory around statistics and probabilities, which is, very serious stuff, is mathematics. But sometimes, just to make it a bit simpler for everybody, because not everybody loves math. I do, but not everybody. So I try to be respectful to everybody. And I often kind of oversimplify a little bit, so I apologize in advance if you are a math expert. But basically, that regression line, that line in the middle, is basically that line which is the closest as possible to every single price point on the chart between those two dates, and therefore is the line that represents what's more likely to happen, okay? Because it's the nearest to where price has been in all that data set. Then above and below, we got one standard deviation up, two standard deviations above and two standard deviations below. And therefore, you are supposed to have price points to be within the bands. And rarely, you may have price points outside the bands, but it should be rarely, because two standard deviations means that basically almost, or a little over 95% of the price points should be inside, assuming this is assuming price will behave as a normal distribution, meaning that anything could happen anytime, which is, again, a simplification one more time. But anyway, so that's a regression line, and some of you may use that to set targets, and when price got there, you took a profit. Again, there are many uses of regression lines. I won't get into that, but if you happen to use regression lines in your trading and you want to project standard deviations above and below, so that's the tool you will want to use. So same story, you can right click on it, okay, and set your defaults. You can see there are multiple defaults. If you set as a default, if you don't set it as a default, you can set those parameters, by double clicking on the line or right clicking to look at the line study properties, okay? And in this case, notice that we're talking about show the upper channel, show the regression line, show the lower channel, show the end line, okay? So the end line is where you ended, okay? The upper is that one, the bottom is that one, the regression line is the one in the middle, okay? I guess it's self-explanatory. If the slope was going down, it would be red colors. If the slope is going up, it would be blue colors. This is what's coming by default. Of course, you can change all of that based on your preferences. And then you have the thickness for all those lines, and then the amount of standard deviations. Okay, so in this case, by default, it's coming at 2 standard deviations above, 2 standard deviations below. And you can also change or vary the source. In this case, that regression line is calculated using the closing price of each candle. Maybe you want to be a bit pickier and you want to use the midpoint of each candle. So you would use the high plus the low divided by 2. Maybe you want to give a little bit of an extra importance to the close. So you use high plus low plus close divided by 3. Okay, and maybe that gives you slight variation where you are giving more importance to the close, but still taking into account the high and the low of each of those candles. Okay, so maybe that's the way you're gonna do it. Now, again, one more time, if I do the same on the way down, so you pick another section on the chart, for example, from here all the way to here, and notice because the slope is going down, notice how the colors automatically change to be red. Okay, where the colors here are blue because the slope is upwards. So that's your regression line, where again, it's a drawing tool. You are the one who clicks where it begins, where it ends, but at the same time, there are all those calculations taking place automatically. Okay, so let me show you one thing very quick. So if I right click, okay, on the line here, it says line study properties. You right click on the regression line, it says line study properties. It says the same thing, but again, the line on the top, it's manually drawn. It could be artistically because you just felt 438.17 is important and you just put it there. Could be totally subjective, where the regression line is not subjective. I mean, it depends on where you clicked for the line to be calculated, but there is a calculation happening behind the scenes. Okay, so that's a very important thing for you to keep in mind. Let me take a look at your questions before we continue with the following tools. Ahmed says, I have an issue. When I switch from chart to another chart like A-minus to 55, this chart does not stay as I want. Like if I press A-minute chart and then I press 55 minutes, the A-minute chart move with me for any chart I press. Oh, you are talking about the tabs, right? So you click on the tabs and then it's like the tabs are sliding and they go to a different location. Is that what you're talking about, Ahmed? Yes. Yes. So yeah, I believe I'm reading also Mark answers. Thank you for that, Mark. That's very kind of you. Yeah, Mark is right. Yes, and now I can see your confirmation that this is the case. Yes, my friends, this is a mini bug that we have on the platform that we are working on fixing. And in one of those release that will release, it will be fixed, and you'll be able to click, and all will be fine. At this moment in time, the tabs are sliding. And the way to work around that problem so it doesn't upset you is to use hotkeys on your keyboard. As I said before, Control plus either page up or page down will bring you to the right place. Okay, so with Control page up, Control page down. So take a look at take a look at the tabs below. Okay, so I'm just gonna use on my keyboard Control page up, and as I do it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just hitting Control page up. If I do Control page down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just moves in sequence without any issue. Okay. I need to add a little more about those tabs. You know what? Maybe this is the right time since we're talking about tabs. Okay. So I believe that all of you noticed the plus sign that allows you to add tabs, isn't it? So when you create a new tab, it's now created for you, and the tab automatically will inherit the name of the symbol and the time frame. So if I change the symbol to Facebook and I change the time frame to monthly, so now that tab is Facebook monthly, okay, automatically. By the way, when you create a new tab, it is not necessarily linked. So if I go to my prior tabs, notice that all my tabs are blue color grouped. Okay, the new tab I just created by clicking on the plus sign here, it's a brand new tab and therefore is not linked. And because it's not linked, notice that it allowed me to change the symbol while everything else stayed the same because it's not linked. Okay, so this is what happens when you create a new tab. That's easy. And if you want to get rid of tabs, you just click on the X and it goes away. Okay, now something I do want to show you about the tabs, which probably you will feel is handy, is the fact that you could auto rotate the tabs. So if I click on that auto rotate button, okay, on the bottom right side of my screen, okay, so if I click on that, notice how I'm not moving my mouse now. Okay, you can see my hands, isn't it? So notice how the tabs are switching automatically. They're going from one tab to the next one, and you can actually change the frequency of these. You can be like, okay, I want these to change every 1 second. So now every second is going to be changing, which probably is too fast. Or maybe you wanna it there to stay 10 seconds per chart. So you just change it to 10 seconds or whatever your preference is. This, I guess, could be quite handy if you are monitoring a portfolio and maybe you have limited amount of monitors, or maybe that's your preference, whatever. So it could be a good way to have multiple trades running that you have running in different tabs and just get them to auto rotate. So you get to be able to monitor them without having to use your mouse or use your hands. So again, and then when you want to stop, you just click on the auto rotate, and then it stops wherever you were. Okay. Anyway, so little parentheses there to talk about the tabs and the rotation. Okay, so let's continue with the drawing tools. Thank you so much, Ahmed, and again, thank you so much, Mark. Very good. Good. So let's continue. Okay, and the next one I would like to talk about is this tool called the speed and resistance line. So this is basically a tool that it's, I guess it's quite handy if you're a classical or technical market analyst and you are looking at where a next trend line could be. So this is going to be based on what you click on the first beginning of a trend, and then you find some significant turning point later on. Okay, maybe you call this one a significant turning point, maybe you call this one a significant turning point. Let's say you're going to go for this one. So the moment you click on this is going to automatically plot the trend line you just selected, okay, but also potential other trend lines that may be where price stops. Okay, if it breaks this trend line and comes here, maybe it's gonna be the place where it bounces. Okay, so this could be interesting tools for your analysis, especially if you're a classical or technical analyst or using classical technical analysis. Okay, and of course the key here is where do you click. Okay, where do you click? That is a relevant turning point. So again, if you are an experienced technical analyst, I guess that you look at a market and your eyes are kind of trained. Maybe you're looking at this move to the downside, and you clearly identify this as the beginning. Okay, and then maybe you select this as the next one, which is a relevant turning point, or maybe you go there. Okay, maybe you come here. It depends on your style. Okay, and basically, the moment you come here, so now you would assume that you may have bounces where that line is located, and if price, maybe you have a rule that says if you cross two lines in a row, that tells you that starting from here you have a change of trend, for example. So again, the beauty of this tool is that there is no subjectivity because there are calculations built in those tools, and the lines are plotted based on those calculations. So you don't give yourself breathing room, which is another way to say hope, when it comes to when is it that my trend is broken. That's the beauty. Now, while that's objective, the subjective part of using any drawing tool really is where do you click on the chart. Okay, so if I get rid of this one for a moment, we'll talk about this more in depth, but just to give you a little tip here, if you go to Add Study, there is a tool called Pivots, which you could set up in different ways. In my case, I have it all in black colors. So this is going to give me little indications with black color, which are those triangles. And those triangles represent relevant turning points. So then you could go ahead and select this tool and just go for those relevant turning points. And in this case, you would take this one, and then you would click on this one. And now you have a very, very clear location for where it goes. Some technical analysts, okay, they actually may prefer to go from high to low because the beginning of a trend is lower lows and lower highs, or higher highs and lower lows, if you speak the language of technical analysis. So some traders may go more aggressive by doing something like that, and just keep trading the inner touches of the line, like here, for example, and things like that. Again, that's more aggressive. This one would be less aggressive. Okay, and again, all of this, I'm just giving you choices. This would also depend on your trading plan. Some of you talking about the trading plan, you may have rules for the pivots to, instead of looking at weak pivots, medium pivots, and long pivots, you may decide to only look at the long or strong pivots, which is going to remove, when I click OK, it's going to remove plenty of those black arrows. Many are going to go away. And now you are left only with the ones which are really, really representing very relevant turning points. So now you can go from here to here. Okay. And now, you can see how, this trend line was touched again. And now, when you are on the other side, maybe as a trader, you concluded that's it. Now you're in an uptrend. And now if you're a trendline trader, so now you would come to the other side and here's your relevant pivot point to the upside, followed by this one. Okay, and in this case, well, this trend is crazy powerful because it never came back to retest that trend line. Here you got multiple retests of this trend line until the trend line was traded on the other side. In this case, price retested and never came back to retest the trend line, right? So again, this is a very strong market condition, the one that we have at the moment, and it's what it is. But again, this could be ways on how to utilize this particular tool if you happen to be a conventional technical analyst, meaning looking at trends from a point of view of pivot points and lower lows and lower highs, or higher highs and lower lows, and these kind of techniques, which are part of the world of technical analysis. Okay, cool. I see no questions. I believe that all should be good. I will continue, but you guys, please feel free to type questions at any moment in time. You don't need to wait for me to say ask questions. You can just ask questions at any moment, including if your question is not directly related to what I'm saying, because if you have any other question, I'm more than happy to maybe vary the topic a little bit so you get the answers you need for your everyday trading as well. So just let me know. We also have the Fibonacci Retracements, which is the next tool here. Okay, and again, Fibs. I mean, we can talk about Fibs for hours, but a crash course on Fibs for the ones of you that may not be using Fibs. Basically, Fibs are ratios coming from the Fibonacci sequence, being the Fibonacci sequence a sequence where you start with number 0, and then you follow number 0 with number 1, and then you add them together, and 0 and 1 is 1, and then you take the two last, which is 1 and 1, you add them together, and then it's 2, and then you keep adding up the two later numbers. 2 and 1 is 3, 3 and 2 is 5, 5 and 3 is 8, 8 and 5 is 13, and then it's 21, and then it's 34, and then it's 55, and 89, and blah, blah, blah. Those are the Fibonacci sequence, and then when you start dividing this number divided by this one, or that number divided by this one, or this number divided by this one, or that number divided by this one, or so on, you end up finding what is known as the golden ratio, which is 0.618. Some people call it the magic ratio. Again, all of those things, depending on being a Fibonacci believer or not, or having a preference. I like to use Fibonacci numbers, not because I believe in it like it's the only thing in the world, but because it makes me objective. It aligns me with things that fund managers and large financial institutional traders utilize. Many computers are coded using Fibonacci ratios and Fibonacci numbers. And if I have to take a decision about using something, I always like to round it or bring it to a Fibonacci number or Fibonacci ratio. That way, I don't need to be thinking too much about it. I make myself objective, but again, more importantly, I align myself as much as possible with those professional computers that are doing trades at the speed of the light all day long. So certainly, I feel it's something that could be very useful. But again, that's just my preference or way on how I think of trading. There are millions of ways on how to trade, and you don't need to be using Fibonacci to be a good trader. Okay, there are other ways to trade, and many things that are more relevant than Fibs. It's just that this is an additional ingredient or element to add odds. So now, what if you take the golden ratio and you calculate the square root of it? What if you take the Fibonacci, you take numbers that are two numbers apart and you do a division? So again, if you start playing with the numbers in different ways, you end up getting all those Fibonacci ratios where the most common Fibonacci ratios, okay? Again, we can talk about this for hours, okay? So if you are a true Fibonacci guy, I apologize for my simplicity here. But basically, if you go from 100 to all the way 0, which could be the beginning of a move and the end of a move, okay? If you think of a move going from up to down, that would be 0 to 100. If you think of a move going from up to down, that would be 0. And here below would be 100, depending on the direction of the move. Jose Blasco. That's a funny one, Fernando. Joe, people control page up or page down is not working for me. Oh, this is very, very strange. Did you click? This may sound silly, but do you have your chart window highlighted? Okay, so like for example, the chart window where I got the tabs has the dark black color here, where the one on the left is gray. If I go on the left and I click on it, now the one on the left is black. So that means that one is selected. Okay, so are you on that window? Have you selected the right window? And then you do control page up or page down, right? So make sure you do that, because if you are clicking on a different window, then it won't work. Okay, so please double check that. I know it's very obvious, but and I know you know your stuff, but this is a subtle detail which may be the case. Anyway, so talking about fibs, okay, so you have the beginning, the end of the move. So let's say the move is going down, so this is 0, and because the move ends here down below, so this will be 100. So 0% of the move to 100% of the move. And then, of course, you would have your, 61.8%, which is the golden ratio. A ratio which is not Fibonacci, to be honest, but everybody uses is the 50%, just because it happens to be half of the move. Then you have another ratio there and there which are relevant, which is the 23.2%. And here you have the, was it? No, I didn't say correctly. 38.2% is correct, and this is 23.6%, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's 0.6, not 0.2. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to give you this crash course on fibs so you understand the plotting in case you're not using fibs. So you understand what I'm going to do now. So if I click on this Fibonacci retracement line and I click on the beginning of a move, in this case, I'm going to do the ratios for the down move. Click on the beginning of the move and drag it down all the way to 0. Okay. And in this case, it's plotted backwards. Okay. So 0 is the end. 100 is at the top, okay, which it makes sense because the move has a beginning and an end, but the retracements go in the opposite direction, meaning that if price went back to this line and then bounced down, it means that it had to retrace by 50% before it reacted and bounced in the opposite direction. So again, this is the beginning of the move, this is the end of the move. So you could think of the way I phrased it. I said, this is your 0 because this is the beginning, and this is your 100 because it's the end, and that's correct. But then when it comes to calculating the ratios, it goes backwards because you're calculating how much you are retracing out of the 100% move. Okay, so then the ratios go backwards. That's why you get to see the 0 in the bottom part in this case. Okay, so again, when you click on the beginning of the move, click on the end of the move, automatically you will be provided with the 38.2, the 50, the 61.8. You can indeed double click and add more ratios if you want. So notice how I can add more ratios and show them, change colors. Again, 75%, some people use it, some people use 88.8%. So again, there are many ways. I mean, again, let's not get into that because there would be a very long conversation. You could basically add whatever ratios you want, change the colors. You can also show the price. So in this case, notice that it shows the price, or maybe you don't want to show the price, you only want to show the percentage. So then you can just uncheck it and it would show the percentage but not the price. So you may want to show both. You may also want to show the anchor lines. The anchor lines is basically these lines that go from the beginning all the way to the end. That's the anchor line, as well as this one that goes vertical like that. Those are your anchor lines. You may want to show it or not, what color, what thickness. All of those things are customizable. And again, same story. If you were to right click on your fib here on the button, so all of these that you set will become your default for any other future drawing. Yeah. So if you want to add 88.6, for example, you come here, 88.6, okay? Select a color. Maybe this one is very important for you, so you want it to be purple. Just, making this up. And then you click OK. And now so you just come here now and click on the beginning, go to the end, and now notice how as a default you got your 88.6 right there. Okay, so that's your Fibonacci retracements. If you do it on the opposite direction, so you go from below to higher, so you click on the below, you go all the way to the end, and now you're like, okay, so let's see if price comes back down. I want to trade a UFO. but only based on fibs. Okay, so guess what? 3. Why? Because you got a Fibonacci number, which is lining up with on-field orders, which in the end is the key. But it makes you more objective, and now you would skip all those trades, which may work very well, by the way. But again, if you're not a Fibonacci trader, you're not interested in those. You're only interested in the ones that are lining up with your Fib ratios. So that's the one that you will have. Okay. Take care, Chuck. It's good to have you with us, my friend. Very good. So let's continue. The next one in line is the Fibonacci extension. Okay. So the extension, okay, has to do with setting targets. Okay, even though it could also, to be honest, it could also very well be used for entries. You'll see. I'll show you both. So when you click on this Fibonacci tool here, okay, and again, same story. You can right-click and set the defaults. Okay, which the defaults is going to look very similar, even now because it's looking for targets. It's adding 1 or 2 in front of your golden ratio, meaning that you are projecting the golden ratio beyond the 100%. Okay, because you are looking for targets. So this is very typical for ABC type patterns. For example, the price of that stock went up, retraced, came to the UFO, bounced from there. So where are potential targets? Okay, and here you got a 61% projection, a 100% projection, and a 161% projection, which is the golden ratio projected beyond 100%. So, and you can add whatever you want. You have the 261%. So again, all of this is to set targets. Typically, you would set targets. So traders, classical application of this is that here is your technical analysis resistance line. There is a breakout, where to take profits. So people may take profits here at 446.57 because it's the 100%, or may go to 455. Why? Because it's the 161.8% projection. So it's a way to set targets. In many cases, that's a classical application of Fibonacci traders, and again, it's done by finding an ABC pattern and just clicking on those 3 points. Okay. Now it can also be used. As support or resistance lines for entries, combined with the retracements. So you can get your extensions. Okay. So maybe you're looking at. Let me do this. Let me make this a bit smaller and you will see where I'm going. So there is a concept in Fibonacci called nested Fibonaccis, which is when you got multiple Fib numbers line up together, which are calculated coming from different places, but they are lining up. So maybe I'm going to start with a extension. So maybe you looked at extensions when price was going down, okay, and you looked at this. Okay, you were looking at this. Price was going down. Then it came back up, right? And then you were calculating a potential target and you got those fibs, okay, in this particular case. Maybe you were also calculating price started here, went here, retrace here. So here are other Fibonacci numbers out of this other extension. You could have done the same on the opposite direction. So price was going up and was going down. Okay, and then it never broke up, but if it did, those will be the extensions to the upside. And then here you got another move to the upside. Okay, and of course now this is getting very crowded on the screen, isn't it? Okay, and then you have more extensions. Okay, and then you have another move here from here. Notice how I'm just using the black markers just to make myself objective. Okay, and now here is your other move, right? So now you have so many extensions where notice how sometimes some of the lines are very near to each other, like for example here and here, okay? And other times they're not, okay? So Fibonacci traders often look at those nested Fibonacci areas and give more importance to those areas of price where you got multiple fibs, okay? To make it even better, you could make it coincide with the UFOs, and in this case, for example, if we go back to what we did before, so we had the retracement, not the extension. I'm looking at the retracement now. And if you look at the beginning of the move, all the way in the bottom, all the way to the very top. So we concluded that if his price was to come back to this 443 UFO, it could potentially be very powerful. Well, yeah, because you have the retracement. But guess what? You also have 1, 2, and 3, 3 more Fibonacci numbers there that are lining up with those 2 UFOs, which are extensions. So you have extensions and retracements lining up with the UFOs. Anyway, one last time, we could talk about Fibs for hours. I'll stop it here, but hopefully you got the point on how to draw them, as well as current symbol, as well as how to customize the settings, and also a little tip on how to use them combined with the UFOs, okay, in case you want it. Yeah, to set as default, you just right click on the button, okay? So don't draw it and then right click on the chart. Don't do this, okay? I'm gonna remove it. Just right click on the button itself and add your 88.6 there, okay? That's where you do it. And then you click OK, okay? And then you click OK. And then it will stay for every future drawing. Cool. Joe, I'd love to know if your control page up and down was working. That would be nice. Ahmed. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Cool. Let's continue. The next one in line is the profit line. And this, to be honest, it's a tool that is normally used for trend management. When it comes to deciding, am I going to trail my stop or not? And if I do it, is it worth it? Something like that. Or maybe you plan a trade and you are wondering, it is not working. That is very, very, very strange, Joe. Very, very, very strange. If you don't mind to send an email to support, I would really appreciate that. Ideally, if you could also send a copy of your page file, that would be nice. So we can get that confirmed, because that is supposed to be extremely straightforward. So please do that so we can help you on having that working. I thought you would have clicked on the chart for sure, Joe. I know that computers are nothing new to you. I know you're actually quite advanced with the use of computers. Okay, so that's why I made that comment. But at the same time, we are human, so that's why I had to make that comment. But yeah, so I'd like to research that more in depth. So please send that so our team can take a look. For sure. Thank you so much. Anyway, so going back to the price line. So this is very simple. Okay, so let's say you are thinking, okay, so what if I took this trade when price came into this UFO and I took profit as the market was closing on Friday? Okay, so you click at the beginning, you click on the cross, okay, and you get this price line, okay, where you can see where you click first, where you click last, and then you have this horizontal line that tells you made $549. Okay, now based on what? Again, if you double click on the line or right click and get the properties, so then you can see that this assumes that you bought 100 shares, okay, at that price, at the prices where you clicked. You bought 100 shares at the price where you clicked, and you sold 100 shares at the price where you clicked. So let's say you only bought 25 shares. So if you bought 25 shares, you click OK. Of course, now your profit is going to be 137.25. So this is one way for you to know, okay, I'm in this trade, I'm trailing stop. You can see how much money you're doing. So what if I place a stop at this location? Sorry, I just did the wrong thing. So here we go. So let's say, what if I place a stop at this location, right? Now that we lock in $195 of profit if that market was to come against you and stop you out. So this is kind of like the use of this line, okay? Of course, you can get more creative with this and use it in other ways. You can, sorry. Okay. Now, let me do it again. I'm not sure what is it that I was doing. Okay, so you can get more creative with the line. Okay, so you can right click line study properties or double click. Okay, and when you come in here, okay, maybe you want to change the colors based on a specific preference. Maybe you don't want to show the price of the stock. The only one you want to show is the profitability. So again, you can do some customizations, and same story. You can right click on the profit line, and whatever you set here will now become your how do you call it, your defaults. Thank you very much. I was not able to phrase that word. Okay, little kind of workaround to having lines that show prices could be this. Okay, so if you select 0 shares, okay, so, and if you draw a price line with 0 shares, it's always going to show you 0, but it's going to show you the price of the stock. So, I mean, this is not a perfect solution, but for the ones of you that want to have the prices of a line on the chart, so this may be the way where you can have it. Okay. Yeah, so those are the various possibilities that could be useful to you when it comes to the line. The last tool I would like to mention here, it's in the very bottom, the Tom Speed Bump. There is one more here with a double rewind, the rewind button with a double triangle pointing left, which that one is what we call the training mode, where when you click on that button, now your cursor changes to have, let me try to highlight it. The cursor changes, I just went too far. Sorry, guys. The cursor changes to, let me do it again, to having those double triangle that represents the rewind type of functionality. And therefore now you go back to the left, wherever you want on the chart. And the moment you click, basically you rewinded the chart to that particular moment in time, on that time frame, whatever time frame. And now you can select the speed of replay, for example, half a second per candle. And when you click play, the market will replay and everything will animate. The creation of the UFOs, whatever was happening in the market at that moment, real time. If you have indicators, whatever is it that you have will automatically replay for you. Of course, you can always pause. You can always move forward manually by just clicking on the forward arrow, and you can do it very quickly if you want. Okay, you can also go to the end, and that ends the replay because you just went to the end. Okay, so all of this could indeed be done, which is very convenient, and you can draw in the past and go back to see what happened in the future, and the sky is the limit. Okay, but again, the last tool I wanted to mention is Tom's Speed Bump. Okay, so as I may have mentioned, I'm sure I have, and I'm sure you heard before, Tom is fantastic trader that also is a fantastic technologist, which is the architect behind a lot of the developments within the platform. He's the founder of Dynamic Trend, which is, as you know, the company who basically put together the engine, the technology behind the platform that we're using. And again, Tom happens to be a fantastic trader. So we have inherited some of the tools that he uses or he has been using for decades in trading. And some of those tools are very much into Elliott wave and things related to Elliott wave, which are enhanced in ways. And in this case, the speed bump is a tool to identify potential relevant turning points. Okay, and the beauty of this tool is that as long as you pick the turning point that is visible in no matter which time frame, the price points projections that will be projected for those future relevant turning points don't vary no matter the time frame. Of course, if you use, like, let's say, for example, I use a 1 minute time frame and I pick that tiny turning point and I click on it, okay, or for example, this one here below, and I click on it, okay, so I just clicked on the wrong place, sorry for that. I clicked on the wrong candle. Let me do it again. So if I click on that candle where the red arrow is, so this is pointing at, where the turning point could be, which in this case, was basically kissed and turned around. So fantastic. Now, that tiny turning point, if I move to a 60-minute time frame, okay, will not be seen, okay, because it's such a tiny thing that does not represent a turning point. A turning point would be those black arrows, isn't it? So if I look at this black arrow on a 60-minute time frame, and or for example, let me see here, for example, right? So if I look at this one and I click, Okay, in this case, price never reached that potential turning point. Okay, but the beauty is that that turning point, if I move from a 60 to a daily, because that's a very relevant turning point, where the turning point took many hours. Okay, so probably I can see the turning point on a daily time frame, and notice if I click on a daily time frame, that speed bump is located here at 422.74, 422 something. So if I go back to the 60-minute time frame, notice how the location is going to be exactly the same, 422 something. You see that? So again, those speed bumps, as long as you pick the same candle on the chart, no matter the time frame, it's going to plot those relevant significant turning points into the future in the same price location, no matter the time frame. Of course, if you pick turning points which are very, very tiny, which you only see in a very tiny time frame and you don't see on a larger time frame, then the location of the speed bumps won't be on the same location, as you can see here, where you have this little purple shaded area, which is the speed bump from the 1 minute time frame, which you don't see at all on a 60-minute time frame. Okay, but as long as you can identify that turning point. Okay, so again, let me go back to this, for example, which is a relevant turning point on the 60. Okay. Okay. If I look at this turning point on the 1 minute time frame, okay, that turning point in the 1 minute time frame, okay, it's coming from this high. Okay, and if I plot the speed bump from this high, okay, or I guess that was not there. It's the lack of precision from the 1 to the 60-minute. No, it's not here. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's way too much difference between the 1 and the 60, and therefore I'm lacking on the precision of my clicking. You can see it's just a little higher, right there on the left. That's the one I got inherited from the 60. But basically, if I could be just as precise with the 1 and the 60, okay, I would end up with a speed bump in the same location. And the thing is that typically you get, as you can see, relevant turning points, which could be used to set targets. Okay, let's say you were trading this thing on the way up. Okay, and even though it's a 1 minute time frame, maybe you waited for price to come to the UFO, right? And as price came to the UFO, you took the trade, and now price bounced from the UFO, and now it kept going higher, 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 higher. So now when it gets to the speed bump, you may be like, okay, that's it, I'm taking profits. Why? Because from there, a change of trend may happen. Okay, it's not guaranteed, but those prices are calculated again using very smart and advanced calculations, including Elliott wave is built in, and therefore when you catch a turning point, it tends to be quite significant. Okay, it tends to be quite significant, and in this sense, for counter trend traders, could be valid entry points if that's your style of trading, and for trend traders, I would say it's quite smart to use those speed bumps as targets. Okay, and also for markets which are making all-time high, for example, the S&P broke a few days ago this all-time high point, so you could obviously come in here, and now you will know that when the market comes here to 460 or something like that, probably from there it's going to retrace a bit more heavily. Now the retracement may happen starting at 459, and it may go all the way to 461. But again, at least if you do it the way I do it, so my preference would be to use the second line of 460. That would be kind of like the normal target. Okay, unless you see the price is approaching in a way that is very, very exhausted, and then it may just turn sooner. But if price is just approaching normally, in this case, it's even creating UFOs, meaning that in this case, you may even get to the top, because if it comes in here and retraces, it's going to bounce back up. So you may get to the top, but definitely somewhere around that area, you should expect a relevant turning point as it happens quite often. Of course, not always, but quite often. Yes, so Fernando, the three levels, as I was kind of not explaining it that formally, but kind of, the three levels are for when a market is very, very strong with a very strong momentum, so you would expect it to go to the end. Normal momentum, you would expect it to go to the middle, and a very weak momentum, then you would expect it to go to the first line. We do not have a probability attached to it. Okay, we do not have a probability which is calculated like the UFOs that shows on the screen. Okay, because the probability really depends on where you click, and that depends on the user discretion. Remember, the speed bumps are a drawing tool, so you are the one who click. Now, of course, as I said before, and you guys know my philosophy on how I trade, and definitely, suggest everyone to have that type of mindset. I like to be mechanical. I don't like to have to make up where do I click today depending on how I feel. So to me, turning on the pivot tool, okay, and being more conservative or less means more triangles or less triangles. Now I just activated all of them, so those triangles will tell you where to click. So if you had clicked on all of them, okay, so when price went below this, you would expect it to turn here. It never went that low. If it went above this, you would expect price to turn here. It came in and started going down. Okay, so this looks a bit small, to be honest. Okay, but if I zoom in a bit better, so you would see how it came in here, and then you have this candle going down. Okay, so there was a reaction, even though it was not a full turning point. Again, if it goes below this, you would expect this to be a turning point, but it never went below. If it goes above that, you would expect a reaction there, and there was a reaction. But again, the trend is up, right? So again, it's not changing the trend. It's a good place where to take the target, where to take profit. It's a good target. If it went below this, okay, so you would expect it to go here, but it would never went below this. If it went below this, you would expect it to, well, actually this is high, so it went there and started reacting. If it went above this, that's the all-time high that we talked about, same area. And if it went above this, same area. So notice how, the market is pretty likely going to, suffer to go beyond all of this, because multiple speed bumps fall in the same area out of clicking in multiple black triangles. And then when the market goes down, so if I was to have a guess, I would say that 450 UFO is probably quite strong, because apart from the unfilled orders, you got plenty of those calculated areas where a significant turning point should happen. Okay, but again, don't forget that there are other mechanics behind the scenes when we analyze a market. Mechanics such as trend, climate, right? And if a climate is healthy, a trend is developing, those speed bumps may just generate very shy reactions. Okay, the S&P is such a trending market. Okay, if you were to look at other markets, like for example, let's see, for example, McDonald's, at this moment in time was not so trending, right? So when you find markets of that sort, or markets that trend a bit less strongly, you may end up with many more possible actions, because you have all those particular areas, right? So for example, price went below this. Okay, notice how it reacted beautifully from there. Okay, price went below this. Okay, this also lines up with that one. Now price broke this guy, okay, which means this guy was hit, so price reacted very well. Price reacted very well again. So if you click on this one, that one didn't create any reaction. Okay, so it's not always, of course. Okay, that one did not create any reaction here. Okay. Why? Because I guess the trend was too strong. Okay, too strong. So price was approaching very, very, very strong. Notice how here price was pausing, and then it turned. So that's what I was saying when it comes to reaching number one, number two, and number three line. So how price is approaching will tell you a lot about that. An extra little tip would be to look at the volume profile. Okay, so when price is approaching, for example, let's say you are here and you are approaching a speed bump, so you look at what's going on, okay, and you look at the volume profile, and you can see, yeah, it's nothing amazing. Actually, it's more leaning towards the put side. So then price is not likely going to reach the level 3 in the speed bump. It's probably going to react to level 1 or 2 and then turn. Okay, where other times, okay, if I go back to the prior case, other time price is just coming like strong, gapping up. You look at the volume map at this stage, probably is very strong, and then it went through all the way. So again, those are very smart calculations, but they are not UFOs. They are not unfilled orders. They are an extremely powerful reference for entries and a very good idea for targets. Okay, but don't take them blindly just because you see them working very well in some cases and now you take them all the time. Remember, there are other mechanics when it comes to market analysis, such as the climate, the trend. All of those things are absolutely critical, and you don't want to fight it. You want those elements to work in tandem to increase your probabilities of success when it comes to catching a turning point. Okay. Yes, Fernando. I mean, I have 100%, million percent respect, and for Tom, the guy is unbelievable. So definitely, I'll pass your compliments, Fernando. This is very appreciative of you, and yeah, amazing tools. There are more tools in the platform that have been developed by him. Okay, so just when you see the word Tom, just pay attention. Okay, very good. So, my friends, we surpassed by 10 minutes the time of the top of the hour, but that's good because that allows us to complete our exploration of all the drawing tools within the charts. There is more that we need to discuss about charts because there is a lot of functionality that I haven't discussed yet, which is absolutely critical and very, very powerful. And we need to talk about that. Okay, but we'll do that in a future session. In the meantime, guys, I thank you very much as always for joining me, especially on the Sundays. I mean, I always thank you for joining me, but on the Sundays, I guess it's probably, I would say, a bit more of an effort for you to join me, away from family time and things like that. So thank you very much, guys. It shows a lot and says a lot about you guys as a committed trader. And I will see you again on the Wednesday. You guys take care, keep up the good work, and if you have questions, please email, and we'll take care of it. Okay, guys? Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, everyone. Oh, by the way, my bad. Happy Halloween. I didn't say. In my country, we celebrate it in a totally different manner. So it's All Saint in my country. So yeah, we celebrate actually family members who passed in the past. So it's a different type of celebration. But anyway, happy Halloween out there in the US, and happy All Saints Day for everyone else who celebrate All Saints. Take care, everybody.